Welcome to the Dig Dive. Today, we're taking a shortcut to understanding something really vital in our increasingly digital world. You know how information and communication technologies are just everywhere, making systems more complex, more interconnected. Well, with that complexity comes this constant need to strengthen our protection against, constantly evolving threats. It's like this relentless digital arms race, and we're here to give you the inside track.
Exactly. And to help us navigate this crucial landscape, we're taking a deep dive into a comprehensive guide. It's the Cybersecurity Handbook from the National Cybersecurity Authority of Greece, published back in June 2021. Think of it as a meticulously crafted blueprint for digital resilience.
Right. And this isn't just any document, it's packed, really packed, with best practices for technical and organizational risk management. Our mission today is to unpack its core insights, section by section, providing you with a clear, actionable understanding of what it means to be truly resilient in cyberspace. Consider us your personal instructors, kind of guiding you through this masterclass on how to fortify your digital defenses.
And while it was developed by Greece's National Cybersecurity Authority, this handbook is actually addressed to a remarkably broad audience. We're talking information security, IT units in public and private organizations, CISOs, data protection officers, software engineers, even teleworking employees. So really, pretty much everyone involved in digital systems. Even if you're just generally curious about cybersecurity, you'll find immense value here. We'll show you how it breaks down these complex topics into, digestible strategies, helping you protect what matters most, whether that's your organization's critical data or, just your own home network.
Okay, so the handbook itself, it's structured into two main parts. Part A sets the stage, the foundation. It introduces security architectures and risk assessment. Then, Part B dives deep into 18 critical best practices, or security control families, as they call them, built on this concept of defense in depth. These practices range from fundamental basic subcontrols for common attacks, right up to enhanced subcontrols for critical systems facing those really advanced threats. So let's unpack this. Hashtag Part A introduction, hashtag 1. Security architectures for network and information systems.
Okay, let's dive into Part A, first major topic. Security architectures for network and information systems. The modern digital landscape, it's truly a shifting perimeter, isn't it? The challenge today really stems from complexity. Our systems, they're just incredibly intricate, much more than even a decade ago. Gone are the days of a simple, clearly defined network boundary, like a single castle wall protecting everything.
That's a crucial point. The handbook highlights how organizations now have their central infrastructure with public-facing servers, internal networks, workstations. But then you add employees bringing their own devices, BYOD, right? Laptops, tablets, smartphones connecting to the organizational network. And let's not forget portable storage, like USB drives, that can connect and transfer data pretty easily.
Yeah, and it goes way beyond the physical office walls. Many organizations now have remote offices, maybe with their own infrastructure. A massive amount of organizational software, especially web apps, is hosted in the cloud, sometimes across multiple different providers. And of course, the huge surge in teleworking means critical data is being accessed from home networks on potentially unaudited personal computers.
Yes, and then you add that layer of third-party providers and suppliers. These are the companies developing applications for you or providing technical support, often connecting remotely to your internal network. Sometimes they even use their own subcontractors, extending that chain of access even further out. This creates this, wide, hard-to-control dispersion of data processing, storage, circulation. That classical network perimeter, that single castle wall we mentioned, it's practically non-existent now.
The so what here is profound. This increasing interconnectivity, the sheer variety of devices, distributed apps, the cloud complexity, it makes everything exponentially more vulnerable. So it's clear that security requirements have increased exponentially right along with that complexity. It's like trying to secure a city where the population is constantly moving, new buildings are popping up everywhere, and the old city walls are just, crumbling.
Right. So to effectively defend against these evolving threats, the handbook highlights two key architectural models. The first, and the foundational one, is defense in depth. Imagine a real castle, multiple layers of walls, moats, guards. If an attacker breaches one layer, they immediately face the next. This philosophy applies successive layers of security measures throughout your network and data. No single layer stops every threat, sure, but together they mitigate a wide variety of offensive techniques.
So what do these layers actually look like in practice? For an organization, the handbook outlines both organizational and technical safeguards, right? On the organizational side, you're looking at robust policies and procedures, things like comprehensive risk analysis, ensuring proper user training, even managing your supply chain effectively. Then you move to access restrictions, embracing principles like least privilege and need to know, meaning users only get access to what they absolutely require for their job and nothing more.
And on the technical side, these layers are everywhere. We're talking network security, which includes things like segmenting your network into smaller, isolated pieces, using firewalls, intrusion detection systems, secure VPNs for remote access. Then there's device protection, which involves deploying antivirus software and using application whitelisting, where only approved applications are allowed to run. Finally, application and data protection covers measures like regular patching to fix vulnerabilities, frequent data backups, and robust encryption to protect data, at rest and in transit. This multi-layered approach significantly reduces the chance of a successful cyber attack and, crucially, minimizes the damage if one does occur. It's all about building resilience.
And building on that layered defense, the continuous evolution of cybercrime and the increasing complexity we just talked about, it led to an even more, radical security model, zero trust. And the name truly says it all. Trust no one.
That's right. The core assumption of zero trust is that threats are inherent both inside and outside traditional network perimeters. You heard that correctly. It operates on the assumption of breach and trusts nothing by default. The guiding principle is never trust, always verify. Every single user, device, application, data stream considered untrustworthy. Before anything gets access, it must be rigorously authenticated and then explicitly authorized with only the absolute minimum required privileges.
This assume breach mindset is really critical. The system operates as if corporate devices and the network might already be compromised. So a deny by default principle applies to every single access request. Every one. Access is only granted after a thorough examination of multiple parameters: username, device name, location, time, even previously recorded user behavior. It's a constant, never-ending reevaluation, even for traffic inside the network.
And it involves highly detailed monitoring. All access requests, configuration changes, network traffic meticulously logged and constantly automatically monitored for suspicious activity. This approach also fully embraces incident preparedness. It recognizes that any access approval carries inherent risks. So immediate incident preparedness, damage assessment, operational recovery aren't afterthoughts. They're built directly into the design from the ground up.
Right. To give you an illustrative example from the handbook, imagine an attacker compromises a legitimate user's credentials. In a traditional setup, they might then move freely, right? But in a zero-trust architecture, even with those valid credentials, the system won't just grant access. Nope. It will challenge every step of the way, continuously verifying identity and context before allowing any access. This really frustrates the attacker's lateral movement and makes it incredibly difficult for them to achieve their objectives. It really highlights its power. #2, assessing the risk. Okay, so we've looked at the big picture security architectures. Now let's shift to another crucial foundational element from Part A, assessing the risk. Why is risk assessment, why is it non-negotiable? Well, today, organizations are almost entirely dependent on information and communication technologies for their daily operations, their overall mission. Any disruption can be catastrophic.
And with that dependence comes inevitable threats. These technologies are constantly subjected to threats that exploit vulnerabilities both known and, frankly, unknown, leading to potentially severe impacts on operations, individual safety, critical infrastructure, even national security. This is all due to breaches of confidentiality, integrity, availability, the classic CIA triad. And it's not just cyber attacks either. The handbook reminds us it includes human error, environmental disasters like floods or fires, even structural failures.
Yeah. Given these profound stakes, it's absolutely imperative for top management to embrace their responsibility. They need to establish a holistic organizational risk management approach for their network and information systems. So what does that actually look like in practice? How do you, embark on this vital assessment?
Well, the handbook, citing the NIST framework, outlines a pretty clear series of actions for risk assessment. It starts with identifying your threat sources. Who or what might target us? This could be anything from malicious groups, competitors, to nation-states, physical threats, or even accidental errors within your own organization. Then you identify threat events. What specific actions could these sources take? Think cyber attacks, natural disasters, physical damage.
Okay, and building on that, you move to identifying vulnerabilities. What weaknesses exist in your organization that a threat source could exploit through these actions? This is about knowing your weak spots, right? Then you estimate the probability. How likely are these threat sources to take action, and how likely are they to succeed given your current defenses?
And finally, you assess the adverse effects. What would be the negative impact on your functions, systems, individuals, other organizations, or even national security if these events occur? The ultimate step is to determine the overall risk. This is a crucial calculation, combining the probability of the events with their potential adverse effects. And the handbook emphasizes that the outcome of this risk assessment directly guides your organization in selecting the appropriate protection measures. Like the specific best practices we'll get into in Part B, it's a direct link from understanding the problem to implementing the solution.
Right. But beyond just assessment, you need a strategy to operationalize this understanding. This is where a high-level information security policy comes in. It defines your security objectives and the overarching organizational approach to achieving them. It also sets the stage for more specific policies and procedures that detail how selected protection measures will actually be implemented. And for overall management, the handbook really emphasizes establishing a comprehensive information security management system, or ISMS.
Yes, risk management is always the starting point for an effective cybersecurity approach. Always. A comprehensive ISMS isn't just a technical checklist, it's a living system that implements risk-based technical and organizational measures. Has the full financial and organizational support of senior management, making it clear this isn't just an IT problem, is regularly assessed and updated, and, perhaps most importantly, it fosters a common cybersecurity culture among all stakeholders, from senior management down to employees, providers, suppliers, everyone. The handbook even cites internationally recognized standards like ISO 27001 and the NIST cybersecurity framework as excellent models for this holistic approach.
And for an ISMS to be truly effective, it needs the right people, the right structure. The handbook states that every organization should establish an appropriate department responsible for the security of network and information systems. This department needs clear roles and responsibilities, adequate staffing with individuals possessing the necessary technical and legal expertise in cybersecurity, and sufficient resources to achieve its cybersecurity objectives. That's key too.
Absolutely. And at the helm of this is a crucial role, the Chief Information Security Officer, or CISO. The CISO is the designated person with the technical and organizational qualifications formally responsible for, well, providing strategic guidance on cybersecurity, supervising and monitoring the ISMS implementation, and ensuring compliance with relevant legislation and regulations. This role isn't just about managing technology. It requires strong leadership skills and the ability to align cybersecurity objectives with the organization's broader operational goals. It's a bridge, really, between technical expertise and business strategy. #check Part B best practices.
Okay, so we've set the stage. We've got the foundational concepts like defense in depth, zero trust, the importance of holistic risk assessment. Now, let's move into the heart of the handbook, Part B. This lays out 18 concrete best practices. Think of these as your actionable roadmap to building a more resilient cybersecurity posture. We'll go through them one by one, unpacking the what, the why, and the how, acting as your personal guides in this cyber masterclass. #1. Inventory of hardware and software assets. First up, best practice number 1, inventory of hardware and software assets. It sounds incredibly simple in concept, but it's absolutely fundamental. You can't protect what you don't know exists.
Right. This practice is all about creating a comprehensive, living map of all your IT assets, both physical ones on your premises and those residing in cloud environments. It's about forming a complete understanding of your asset range and the controls needed to protect them throughout their life cycle.
The risks of ignorance here are profound and, frankly, quite common. The larger an organization, the more challenging asset management becomes, especially with assets spread across multiple locations, the cloud, including mobile devices, teleworking setups. Without a system to regularly record these assets, organizations face significant threats. For one, you simply can't track your authorized resources or detect unauthorized devices connected to your network. This creates massive blind spots for your defense.
Yeah, it's like trying to put out a fire in a building when you don't even know how many rooms it has or what's in them. It's crazy. Attackers are relentless. They're constantly and automatically scanning IP address ranges of organizations across the internet, looking for unprotected systems or vulnerable application versions that can be remotely exploited. They're doing this automatically all the time. Internally, unregistered machines with insecure configurations or vulnerable client software like old browsers can become high-risk entry points for malware. And imagine this. In the event of a cyber attack, it becomes incredibly difficult, almost impossible, to trace the origin of malicious traffic or locate all vulnerable devices without a clear inventory.
So how do we build this essential digital atlas? The handbook emphasizes a structured approach, starting with a clear, documented asset inventory policy that outlines purpose, scope, responsibilities. The core idea is to create and continuously maintain an accurate, updated inventory of all IT assets, including details like owner, IP address, and MASI address, software versions, physical location. This isn't a one-time task. It's an ongoing process, really important.
Yeah, and a key takeaway here is accountability. Assign an owner for each asset. Ensure responsibility throughout its entire life cycle. And strategically, you need to classify assets based on their criticality and sensitivity to business operations. Not all assets are equally important, right? Your protection measures should reflect that. Your crown jewels get the most protection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The handbook also highlights the need for specific policies around removable media, like USB drives, covering acceptable uses, protection requirements, and what to do if they're lost or stolen. For organizations embracing Bring Your Own Device, or BYOD, the guidance is strict. Ensure these personal devices don't access critical enterprise systems. Strictly separate their internet access from the corporate network, and ensure your IT department configures them with appropriate security settings.
And finally, a really powerful tip. Leverage automated tools. Tools to continuously scan your network and log files to identify connected devices and their features, automatically updating your inventory. This proactive approach helps you find what you didn't even know you had, closing those critical blind spots before attackers can exploit them. #2guy. Secure configuration of devices and applications. So you've got your asset inventory. The next critical step, our second best practice, is ensuring all those devices and applications are securely configured. Think of it like buying a new car. You don't just drive it off the lot, right? You adjust the mirrors, set the seat, learn the controls. Your IT systems are no different. They need hardening beyond their default settings. Big time.
This is a huge area of risk. Operating systems and applications often come with default features and settings that don't prioritize security. Common examples: easily guessable default credentials like admin, user accounts with unnecessary privileges, older and vulnerable protocols enabled, or even pre-installed software that isn't needed for business operations. A massive pitfall is the failure to plan and timely download software updates and patches. That leads to the long-term use of applications with known vulnerabilities.
And what could possibly go wrong, you ask? Well, all these issues lead to severe risks. Attackers can execute specific code, known as an exploit, to gain unauthorized access to corporate systems and data. If an insecure configuration is exploited, an attacker could gain control of an account with unnecessary privileges, granting them extended access across your entire business network. It's a foothold.
Furthermore, critical security configurations can be intentionally altered by unauthorized individuals, increasing system and data exposure. The handbook vividly illustrates this by pointing out how easily public websites list default usernames and passwords for every router model from all vendors. It's shocking, really. If you don't change these defaults immediately after installation, you're essentially leaving a wide open door for attackers. And this applies to every asset with default credentials.
So how do we implement this digital armor? The handbook stresses a multi-pronged approach.
It starts, again, with a clear, documented, secure configuration policy. Beyond that, a crucial step often overlooked: remove any devices, operating systems, or applications that are no longer supported by their vendors. Unsupported means unpatched, which means fundamentally vulnerable. Simple as that. And foundational for every new asset. Immediately modify default credentials after its first installation. This is Cyber 101, but it's astonishing how often it's missed.
For standardization, the handbook recommends implementing secure configurations based on internationally recognized standards and guidelines, like the Center for Internet Security Benchmarks, and ensuring these are regularly updated. And you simply must stay current. Use only supported OS versions and configure them for automatic updates. And for all important business applications, internet-accessible server applications, always use the latest, most up-to-date versions. Always.
To manage this at scale, employ tools that automatically install updates and patches across your operating systems and applications. This reduces human error and ensures timeliness. Also, a key defense is to implement a host-based firewall on every workstation and server, configured to block all inbound and outbound network connections except those strictly necessary for business needs.
For your network devices, the handbook advises specific hardening settings, things like disabling unnecessary services and unused ports. And crucially, applying two-factor authentication for administrative access to all critical network devices. And remember to regularly review and disable any accounts no longer associated with a user or whose business need no longer exists. Stale accounts are a major risk, an easy target.
To maintain visibility and control, use system configuration and change management tools to automatically track all configuration changes and updates across your corporate network. This gives you vital insight into what's changing. Another critical point. Restrict portable storage media like USB sticks from connecting to systems classified as critical unless there's a strict, documented business need.
And for internal system accounts, the handbook advises to manage service accounts automatically with security in mind. Grant minimum required access rights, regularly change passwords, disable them when no longer needed. Finally, a smart proactive measure. Create full system images of your operating systems with basic security configurations applied. Keep these golden images offline and encrypted. These are your known good starting points for rapid secure deployment after an incident or for new setups. #tag3, application and services execution control. We've talked about secure configurations, but this next best practice, application and services execution control, it goes a step further. Apply the principle of least functionality. Essentially, configure all your systems to run only the applications and services absolutely essential for your business operations. Every extra application or service running is another potential door for an attacker. Less is definitely more here.
And the dangers of an expanded attack surface are significant. Your attack surface is basically the total set of access points exposed to an attacker to gain system access, plus all the data and application uses that could be extracted. The more applications running, the larger this surface becomes. Attackers are constantly scanning organizational networks for open ports, and the services running on them, web, mail, file-sharing servers looking for vulnerable software versions. If you have an application installed that isn't needed but has a known vulnerability, it's an enormous risk. They exploit these to gain access.
And here's where it gets really interesting. With improvements in malware detection, attackers are shifting to a more sophisticated technique called fileless attacks.
Yeah.
The term comes from the fact that the malicious code runs directly in memory, never creating an executable file on the hard drive. This makes them incredibly difficult for traditional antivirus software to detect. Really sneaky.
Right. These attacks often start with a phishing email. The victim is lured into opening an attachment, maybe a malicious Word or Excel file, or clicking a link. If it's an attachment, script code executes directly in memory by utilizing pre-installed and whitelisted Windows tools like PowerShell, WMI, or Command Prompt. The attacker's intentions are carried out without ever being detected by file-based antivirus. It highlights the insidious nature of leveraging legitimate tools for malicious purposes.
So, how do we control what runs on our systems to minimize these risks? How do we fight back?
Well, as with any critical security area, the handbook advises developing and documenting an execution control policy. Then, paramount to reducing risk, minimize the attack surface on servers and workstations. Strictly limit open ports, protocols, network services to only what is absolutely necessary for business. And to catch anything unauthorized, regularly perform automated port scanning of your corporate network. This helps detect any unauthorized open network ports or services that might have popped up unexpectedly.
You also need to ensure that non-privileged users cannot disable or modify security configurations on their workstation's operating systems. You don't want accidental or, intentional weakening of your defenses. And non-privileged users should only be allowed to install applications from organization-controlled software repositories. This prevents those rogue software installations.
For proactive defense, the handbook recommends creating an application blacklisting approach, where you identify unauthorized applications and executable file types and ensure their execution is blocked on servers and workstations. This can be enforced by rules based on metadata, like name, file hash, or digital certificate.
The server message block, or SMB protocol, often used for file sharing, is a frequent target. The handbook strongly advises implementing critical configurations for SMB, like blocking inbound and outbound internet connections for specific SMB-related ports in your perimeter firewall. And crucially, disabling older vulnerable versions like SMB v1 and v2 on your internal network, upgrading to SMB v3 or the most current version, that's a big one.
For even stronger defense, ensure your operating system's execution policy enforces the execution of only digitally signed scripts, executable files, device drivers, and firmware. This involves maintaining a list of trusted certificates to detect and prevent malicious code execution. This is a crucial defense against those fileless and other advanced attacks we mentioned. Also, in Microsoft Windows environments, the handbook suggests preventing non-privileged users from running powerful script execution engines like PowerShell and Command Prompt. These are frequently abused by attackers in fileless attacks.
Finally, the strongest control mentioned, application whitelisting. This means creating a list of authorized applications and their components and ensuring that only these are allowed to run on servers and workstations. It's the opposite of blacklisting and significantly reduces the attack surface by defaulting to deny for anything not explicitly approved. It's a very robust approach to keeping your systems clean and secure. #tag for access control. Okay, now that we've ensured only necessary applications are running and your systems are securely configured, let's talk about who can access them and what they can do once they're in. This is where access control comes in, guided by those fundamental principles of least privilege and need to know. Essentially, users and processes should only have the absolute minimum access rights necessary to perform their specific duties. No more, no less.
And the stakes are incredibly high with misconfigured access. Really high. Misconfigurations in granting privileges and access rights offer attackers numerous opportunities to spread across an organization's network. For example, if a user has unnecessary local administrator privileges on their PC, and that machine gets infected, maybe by opening a malicious email attachment, the malware will execute with administrator permissions. This means the attacker could gain full control of that PC and use it as a launching pad to move laterally to other systems within your network.
Right, and think about role-based access failures. When users are granted access rights beyond what their role actually requires, like someone in finance having access to systems in, say, the engineering department, it exponentially increases the risk if their account is ever breached. Many more systems are unnecessarily exposed. The handbook stresses that restricting elevated privileges and implementing role-based access control are absolutely crucial for reducing the impact in the event of a cyber attack.
The document provides a vivid illustration of this with a ransomware scenario. It really brings it home. If a routine user has local administrator rights and their machine gets infected, the malware runs with elevated privileges. It can then create new admin accounts, modify the system registry, install other malicious tools, even delete log entries to hide its presence. Worse, after gathering internal network info, it can move laterally to other systems, exfiltrate sensitive data, and ultimately encrypt corporate files for ransomware demands. This underscores why careful privilege granting is so vital to preventing such a catastrophic chain of events.
So how do we implement this granular control? What are the steps?
As always, start with a robust, documented access control policy. It should address the purpose, scope, roles, responsibilities, and precise procedures for implementing all access control measures.
Then, ensure that every employee and external partner who obtains a user account is uniquely identified. This is absolutely key for accountability. You need to know exactly who did what and when. No ambiguity. And you must create and maintain a detailed inventory of all user accounts, including the person's name, username, assigned privileges, their department. This is your master list of who has access.
Critically, users who perform only non-administrative daily tasks, like using productivity software, sending emails, web browsing, should be granted only non-privileged accounts. This limits the blast radius if their account gets compromised. And for your privileged users, like IT administrators, they should have a secondary non-privileged account for their daily routine tasks. Their admin account should only be used when performing administrative functions. This prevents their highly powerful account from being exposed during routine, potentially risky activities like web browsing.
For proper structure, grant access rights strictly based on distinct roles. Users should only have access to the specific type of information necessary to perform their duties, adhering to those least privilege and need-to-know principles, and implement centralized account management, often through a directory service like Microsoft Active Directory. This simplifies management and ensures consistency across the board.
Finally, for your most sensitive actions, the handbook advises implementing a dual authorization technique for specific critical commands or functions. This means that two authorized users must approve the action before it can be performed. This significantly reduces the risk associated with insider threats or compromised single accounts, adds a really strong layer of control. #tag user authentication.
Okay, so you've decided who gets access and what they can do, but how do you verify they are who they say they are? That's the heart of user authentication. It's about implementing measures and procedures to rigorously verify the identity of any user trying to access your corporate network. It's essentially your digital ID card check.
And authentication systems are a primary target for any attacker. Why? Because compromising them directly leads to identity theft and unauthorized access to an organization's valuable resources. The handbook lists several pervasive ways user credentials get stolen. The most common is through weak passwords. It's still a huge problem. Most users fall prey to using easy-to-remember passwords, which are easily retrieved with dictionary attacks or brute force methods.
Then there's employees storing credentials in plain sight, like on sticky notes under the keyboard. We've all seen it. Organizations themselves can be at fault by using outdated or weak cryptographic techniques for password storage. And a massive risk comes from password reuse, where an attacker steals a password from, say, a less secure personal account that the user then uses for a corporate account. Big no-no.
Social engineering is also rampant. Attackers deceive users to reveal credentials, often through fake online forms linked from phishing emails. And, of course, there's the use of malware that retrieves passwords directly from computer memory or by sniffing network traffic if it's unencrypted. These are all open doors for attackers, emphasizing the need for robust authentication.
So how do we build stronger digital locks? What are the specific measures?
Well, first, you need a well-defined, documented user authentication policy that addresses its purpose, scope, roles, and implementation procedures.
Then the foundation, implement authentication mechanisms that enforce strong passwords. What makes a password strong? The handbook specifies at least 12 characters long, containing at least one uppercase and one lowercase letter, one number, and one special character.
Yeah.
Crucially, it must not contain names or common dictionary words. Passwords should be changed at least every 6 months. The capability to create passphrases longer, memorable phrases, is also highlighted as a strong option. Much better than short, complex ones sometimes.
To deter brute force attacks, set a maximum limit for continuous unsuccessful login attempts, typically 3 to 5. Beyond this, the account should be locked for a predetermined time period. And when it comes to storing passwords, ensure they are stored in hashed form. This means using one-way hash algorithms with the addition of a random data sequence or a salt to make them much harder to crack, even if the hash database is compromised. Think of the salt as a unique secret ingredient mixed into each password before it's stored, making it harder for attackers to use pre-computed tables, those rainbow tables, to guess them.
Right, and crucially, all transmission of credentials over the network must be done exclusively using encryption. Plaintext passwords are just an open invitation to attackers. Now, for a truly critical control, implement two-factor authentication, 2FA, for access to all privileged accounts, including those of third-party vendors. A password alone is no longer enough for these high-value targets, period.
And extend this further. Implement 2FA for all remote access connections to your internal network. This applies to all employees, privileged and non-privileged, and third parties providing support. No exceptions. Also, configure workstations to enable screen lock after a maximum of 15 minutes of user inactivity. Re-authentication should be required to unlock the screen. Prevents unauthorized access if a device is left unattended.
For your most valuable data, your crown jewels, implement 2FA for every user requesting access to your critical or sensitive data, regardless of their role. This adds a critical layer of protection. And the handbook also advises considering implementing a public key infrastructure, PKI, to authenticate users using digital certificates. This provides a very strong form of authentication.
Right. And the handbook also points out a subtle but important detail regarding 2FA. While 2FA undoubtedly improves security, using SMS for the second factor is now considered more vulnerable, especially to SIM swapping attacks. It strongly recommends using mobile applications that create one-time passwords directly on the user's device. Things like Google Authenticator or Authy. This is far more secure because the password isn't transmitted over an insecure network. It's a key distinction for robust security. #6, network security.
Okay, now let's talk about the very pathways of your digital operations, your network infrastructure. This best practice, network security, focuses on strengthening it with secure architecture and robust configurations. Protecting your network, both from external and internal threats, is a fundamental priority for any organization because it's the backbone of everything you do digitally.
Absolutely. When networks are compromised, it's a cascade of risks. Failure to implement an effective network architecture and appropriate security measures puts organizations at various severe risks. Malware infection can lead to system compromise, data alteration, or theft. For ransomware, inadequate network protection can result in the encryption of critical business files across the entire corporate network. Devastating.
And if networking protocols aren't properly secured, an attacker can perform man-in-the-middle attacks, sniffing traffic and stealing corporate data and credentials transmitted over the network. And in a distributed denial of service, DDoS attack, attackers use those botnets, vast networks of infected devices, to simultaneously flood corporate servers with huge volumes of traffic, interrupting services for legitimate users, knocking you offline.
If attackers breach your network, they can also perform web defacement. Modifying your website content by posting malicious messages or photos causes significant damage to your reputation and public trust. And wireless channels introduce unique threats, like a rogue access point, a hidden device connected to your internal network giving an attacker access. Or the evil twin attack, where an unauthorized access point mimics your legitimate Wi-Fi but with a stronger signal, tricking unsuspecting users into connecting and then stealing their passwords and sensitive data.
So how do we build a secure network fortress? What are the key design principles?
Well, you start with a comprehensive documented network security policy. That's table stakes. Crucially, maintain up-to-date network and data flow diagrams. These visual aids show all connections, devices, sensitive data flows. They must be kept in a secure location. Also, maintain a protected file with all routing rules and firewall access control lists. Ensures their integrity and quick reference.
A critical concept is the demilitarized zone, DMZ. Servers with public IP addresses, web, mail, VPN, must reside in a distinct network zone called a DMZ. This zone is physically or logically separated from your organization's internal network. It's like a buffer zone. Then, install a strong firewall at your network perimeter that only allows inbound and outbound traffic strictly necessary for your business operations, blocking everything else by default.
To enhance internal defenses, segment your internal network into distinct subnets based on the sensitivity level of your business operations. Then implement traffic filtering between these subnets to limit information flow only to what's necessary. This acts as an internal defense in-depth layer. Internal firewalls, basically. For remote access, ensure it is done using a virtual private network, VPN, combined with two-factor authentication and the most up-to-date encryption algorithms.
All network traffic to or from the internet should pass through an authenticated application layer web proxy server, configured to prevent unauthorized connections and block malicious content, and implement network intrusion detection systems, IDS, and intrusion prevention systems, IPS, to detect and actively prevent attacks on any organizational subnet. For subnets with very high security requirements, like protecting critical industrial control systems, consider a hardware data diode. This enforces a one-way data flow, preventing any data from flowing back into the highly secure zone. Very specialized, but important.
Right, and the handbook provides an excellent visual of good practice here. It shows a corporate network separated into 3 zones, 2 DMZs, and an internal zone using a firewall. This illustrates a masterclass in limiting exposure and containing potential breaches by isolating different types of traffic. Really useful diagram.
Now, let's talk about defending against the deluge of DDoS attacks. How do you handle those? You need to clearly identify how your services can be overloaded and the specific limits, bandwidth, processing power, storage beyond which their availability is at risk. Know your breaking points. Also, use domain registrar locking to prevent unauthorized changes to your domain, which protects against a type of DDoS that targets your domain's availability itself.
Your infrastructure must have built-in resource redundancy to withstand a denial of service attack, meaning having backup systems or capacity that can take over. And separate your critical services from other services more likely to be targeted, like public web services, to protect your core functions. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. The handbook also advises using specialized systems that monitor the availability of your critical services, detect DDoS attacks, and send real-time alerts. Early warning is key.
And finally, securing the airwaves wireless network security. The handbook recommends avoiding public wireless access networks in your infrastructure if possible. If you must have them, ensure they are strictly separated from your organizational network. And disable wireless access to the administration interface of your wireless access points. You don't want someone connecting to your Wi-Fi to then manage your network hardware.
Definitely not. Implement the 802.1x protocol for network access control. This helps prevent unauthorized devices from connecting to your organizational network, and ensure wireless network traffic is encrypted using the Advanced Encryption Standard AES algorithm with a 256-bit key, WPA2 or WPA3. Use the latest standards. Lastly, implement a wireless intrusion detection system, WIDS, to detect unauthorized wireless access points connected to your organizational network. Helps identify those rogue APs or evil twin attacks, #7, malware protection.
Okay, from network security, let's zoom into one of the most persistent and, well, evolving threats. Malware. This best practice is all about implementing technologies that detect and prevent the installation, execution, and transmission of malicious code across your network and information systems. It's a constant threat, and we need to keep malware at bay, always.
The risks of malware are multifaceted and wide-ranging. Malware constitutes one of the top threats. Its impacts can include password theft, data theft, identification of additional targets within the network, and unauthorized modification and encryption of data, the hallmark of ransomware. Malicious code can infect systems through various pathways: email, malicious websites, removable media like USB drives, lots of entry points.
Right. And its propagation relies on vulnerabilities in target systems and on careless behavior from end users, like opening attachments or web links, installing unapproved software, or inserting infected USBs. To be effective, malware protection mechanisms must be applied to all input and output points of your systems: workstations, web servers, mail servers, proxy servers, remote access servers, firewalls. No stone left unturned, really.
Exactly. The handbook vividly illustrates the power of malware with the example of Emotet, one of the most dangerous malware variants in recent years. After infecting a victim's computer, Emotet steals passwords from the system and browser, collects contacts from Outlook to send more spam, and downloads other malware, often banking Trojans. The critical takeaway. The initial infection often starts from a simple click by the victim to open a malicious Word document sent via email. This powerfully underscores the importance of user education and awareness about social engineering and phishing. It often starts with a human click.
So what are the proactive defenses against this pervasive threat? How do we build that wall?
Well, you need to develop and document a clear malware protection policy. Then, implement anti-malware software on every workstation and server. Absolutely essential. It's crucial that this software is centrally managed and automatically updates its signature database regularly. Needs to stay current. And ensure that anti-malware scanning is automatically performed on removable storage media whenever they are connected to devices. Catch it at the entry point.
For web browsing and email, ensure your organization uses only the most up-to-date and supported versions of web browsers and email clients. Older versions often have known exploitable vulnerabilities. And disable or uninstall any unauthorized plugins or add-ons in web browsers and email clients. These can be significant vectors for attack.
Implement DNS filtering services to block access to known malicious domains. This can stop connections to command and control servers or phishing sites before they even load. Also, implement and enforce network-based URL filters to limit your systems from connecting to websites not approved by your organization's security policy. Control where users can go.
Your first line of defense against phishing and email-borne malware is to implement content filtering techniques to block malicious inbound emails. Scan that incoming traffic. And for an additional layer of defense directly on the endpoints, install host-based intrusion detection prevention systems, AG-SHIPs, on every critical server and on every user workstation. This provides a direct, localized shield against threats that might get past other defenses. #8. Maintenance and analysis of event logs. Okay, think of event logs as the digital breadcrumbs, or maybe the forensic evidence of everything happening on your systems and network. This next best practice emphasizes the critical need to collect, maintain, and crucially analyze these logs to timely detect and respond to cyber attacks. These logs tell you the story of what happened, but only if you know how to read them right, and only if you actually look.
Absolutely. The impact of unmanaged logs can be catastrophic. In many cases, logs are collected, but they are rarely, if ever, analyzed. This means attackers can successfully infect targets, steal valuable data, maintain persistent access to corporate systems for extended periods without being detected. They're effectively operating in the dark, and you remain completely blind.
Sometimes, event logs are the only indication that a successful cyber attack has occurred. If log collection is insufficient, or if they're not analyzed, your incident response team will be unable to investigate key elements of the attack. Things like its origin, date and time, techniques used, whether data was exfiltrated. Without logs, you're trying to solve a crime with no witnesses or evidence. It's like having security cameras that record, but no one ever reviews the footage until it's way too late.
So how do we make sense of all this data and make it truly actionable? How do we turn noise into signal?
Well, as with all best practices, develop and document an event logs policy that covers its purpose, scope, roles, and detailed procedures for implementation. Then, fundamentally, enable event logging on all workstations, servers, and network devices. You need that comprehensive view across your entire environment, everywhere.
Crucial for correlation. Ensure clock synchronization across all devices, using something like NTP. This allows accurate correlation of events among different systems, which is vital for tracing an attack timeline, ensuring that a log entry from a firewall lines up perfectly with an entry from a server. The handbook details specific events that should be logged, including successful and unsuccessful logins, access to files, changes in user accounts, and data transfers. Lots of detail.
And configure event logs to include detailed metadata, event source, date, username, timestamp, source, and destination IP addresses. The more context, the better for forensic analysis. And ensure event logs are retained for a minimum period of 1 year. This allows for retrospective analysis and meets many compliance requirements.
Critically, event logs must be adequately protected from unauthorized access, modification, and deletion. Attackers often try to erase their tracks, so protecting the logs themselves is paramount. Lock them down. Also assign event log management to only a subset of users with privileged accounts to limit who can tamper with them. Need to know applies here too.
For easier analysis and inspection, ensure event logs are collected on a centralized log server. Decentralized logs are nearly impossible to manage effectively. Finally, for larger organizations, the handbook strongly recommends implementing a security information and event management SIEM system. This powerful tool collects, analyzes, and correlates event logs from across your entire environment at a centralized location to detect suspicious activity. This is where raw log data truly turns into actionable intelligence. Pulling together disparate pieces of information to reveal patterns and flag potential threats automatically. Hashtag tech9 web application security. Okay, from system logs, let's pivot to the very applications that define modern cyberspace. This best practice, web application security, demands that security principles are applied throughout the entire life cycle of your web applications, from design and development through testing and production, all the way to maintenance. It's not an afterthought. Web applications are the core of digital activity, web banking, e-commerce, social media, taxation, e-government, everything.
Exactly. Their ubiquity makes them prime targets for cyber attacks, with potentially severe effects. These include theft of governmental and corporate data, money theft from users and banking institutions, theft of credentials, credit card numbers, exfiltration, modification or destruction of entire databases, and web defacement. Huge impacts. Web applications are unfortunately vulnerable to a significant number of serious issues. The handbook points to the OWASP POP10 as a key reference, highlighting common vulnerabilities like SQL injection, command injection, and cross-site scripting, XSS. This reality mandates security by design principles from the very beginning of development.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The handbook provides a detailed example of cross-site scripting, XSS, specifically a stored or persistent XSS attack. Imagine an attacker visits a vulnerable website, like a web form that accepts comments, and uploads a malicious JavaScript code snippet. This script is then stored on the web server, just waiting.
Right. When a victim later visits that same website, the stored script is activated and executed immediately in the victim's browser upon page load. The script then quietly steals the victim's session cookie and sends it to a server controlled by the attacker. The attacker can then use the stolen cookie to authenticate themselves as the victim, achieving identity theft. What makes XSS particularly insidious is that the script executes as soon as the victim visits the vulnerable page. They don't even have to click anywhere specific. This illustrates why careful input validation and output encoding are so incredibly critical for developers.
So how do we make our web applications secure by design and secure in practice? What are the key controls?
We'll start with a dedicated web application security policy. Define your standards. For all applications under development, whether in-house or outsourced, define clear security requirements that are proportional to the application's criticality and data sensitivity. And you should utilize only established, fully up-to-date application development frameworks and actively supported software libraries acquired from trusted sources. Avoid building on a shaky foundation. Use secure components.
Crucial for preventing many injection attacks. Verify that all input to your applications from forms, requests, URLs, headers is validated both syntactically and semantically. This must use server-side whitelist filtering, meaning only allowing what's explicitly good, not trying to block everything bad, which is much harder. To prevent XSS, verify that your web applications implement output encoding and character escaping techniques just before input data is passed to the application interpreter. This neutralizes malicious scripts before they can execute in the user's browser.
For database interactions, verify that your web applications implement query parameterization techniques on every input. This is the primary defense against SQL injection attacks. It prevents malicious code from being inserted into database queries. Treat input as data, not code. The handbook also advises configuring secure HTTP response headers to implement things like Content Security Policy, CSP, HTTP Strict Transport Security, HSTS, and X-Frame options. These headers add layers of defense against common browser-based attacks.
And ensure your web applications implement secure authentication and session management techniques. This means enforcing strong passwords, implementing 2FA where required, storing passwords hashed with a strong SALT, generating new session tokens on each user authentication, and invalidating session tokens on logout or expiration. For instance, the handbook emphasizes using specific secure attributes for session cookies to prevent theft, like HTTP only and secure flags.
Implement the principle of least privilege to control the access of users and processes to data files, URLs, and services within your application, not just at the network level. And verify that every connection of your web servers with user browsers, other web service calls, databases, cloud, is encrypted using the latest version of the TLS protocol. Encryption everywhere.
Security testing should be continuous, not just at the end. Ensure your web applications are tested for security vulnerabilities after each significant functionality is added during development. Shift left. And a critical step before launch. Perform a penetration test prior to the initial release of your web applications. This is a real-world simulation of an attack designed to find vulnerabilities before the bad actors do.
Finally, implement a web application firewall, WAF, either in your infrastructure or as an outsourced cloud service. Away inspects all traffic flowing to your web applications specifically for common web application attacks. It's like a specialized guard for your web apps. And ensure that any application data classified as critical or sensitive is stored in encrypted form, known as encryption at rest. Protect that stored data too.
The handbook strongly recommends the nonprofit OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project, for highly comprehensive guides. They're recognized as de facto standards for secure web application development. Their Application Security Verification Standard, ASVS, and proactive controls for developers are excellent resources for you to explore further. Really good stuff there. ##10. Teleworking. Right, the pandemic dramatically shifted how we work, didn't it? Making teleworking a permanent reality for so many. This next best practice outlines how to ensure secure teleworking, both by applying measures to your corporate network and by providing robust guidelines to employees for hardening their home networks and online behavior. This is truly the new normal, and it brings a whole new set of challenges.
It really does. This model introduces significant new risks for both corporate systems and individual users' home networks. If an employee works in a public space and leaves their device unattended, it could be stolen or tampered with. Simple physical risk. Attackers also send fraudulent emails with malicious attachments or links, aiming to infect the home computer with malware like ransomware or steal credentials. Why? Because the home network often lacks those corporate-grade defenses. It's a softer target.
And in public Wi-Fi networks, attackers can spoof legitimate networks with evil twin attacks, stealing credentials from unsuspecting users, intercepting traffic, or injecting malicious messages to gain access to the organizational network. And a big one, employees often use personal devices with weak security settings at home, weak passwords, unpatched applications, a single user account with admin privileges, lack of data backups. It's a real blend of personal convenience and organizational risk that needs careful management.
So how do we protect the corporate side and empower employees in this new remote environment? What's the balance?
Well, it starts with a documented teleworking policy, clear rules of the road, and crucially, ensure your VPNs and network equipment are always updated with the latest software patches and security configurations. These are the critical gateways to your corporate network.
And this is non-negotiable for remote access security. Implement two-factor authentication and strong passwords for all VPN connections to your internal network. This adds a critical layer of defense, ensuring that even if a password is stolen, the attacker still can't easily get in.
Now, empowering employees. The handbook provides crucial teleworker-specific controls. These are things you can do. Teleworkers must follow their organization's IT department guidelines for the secure configuration of their home computers and network equipment. This is where education meets enforcement. As regards your home wireless access point, verify the use of WPA2 or WPA3 standards for encryption, and implement strong, unique passwords for both the Wi-Fi network itself and the access point's administration interface. Change those defaults.
For robust user authentication, whether for personal or work accounts, use only strong passwords. Remember the rules. At least 12 characters, mixed case, numbers, special characters, no dictionary words. Use a different password for each account and change them regularly. Password managers are your friend here. And implement 2FA where supported, preferring mobile applications for one-time passwords over less secure SMS messages, as we discussed earlier.
Teleconferencing is ubiquitous now, so ensuring its security is paramount. Use the most up-to-date version of an approved video conferencing application and configure it for automatic updates. Always use strong, unique meeting codes and passwords for each video conference, ideally single-use. Crucially, do not post the conference URL on public websites like social media. Send the URL and credentials directly to recipients via secure channels like email or instant messaging.
When working remotely from a home computer, the handbook advises to use a dedicated non-privileged account for daily tasks. Don't browse the web as admin. Reserve your administrator account only for maintenance or software installation, and keep home software updated. Use the most up-to-date and supported versions of operating systems and software for your home computer with automatic updates enabled. Patch everything.
Install antivirus software on your home computer that automatically receives updates and provides additional anti-phishing, secure web navigation, and firewall capabilities, comprehensive protection, and perform regular backups of your files to external storage USBs, external hard drives, or cloud services to minimize ransomware risk. Always disconnect external storage when not in use.
When browsing online, always use the latest web browser version with automatic updates enabled. Disable unnecessary browser plugins and extensions. They can be risky. Do not save passwords in the web browser itself. Use a dedicated password manager. Browse with caution, avoiding websites more likely to be infected, illicit content, pirated software, etc. Verify HTTPS for sensitive information. Look for that padlock symbol. Ensure the connection is secure and the certificate is valid. And be mindful of information posted on social networks about your private and professional life. Oversharing is risky.
This next one is a critical user defense. Handling suspicious email. In the case of an incoming email that looks suspicious, do not open attached files or click web links. Just don't. Attachments can carry malware. Links can lead to fake credential harvesting websites. Reinforce. No legitimate organization, banks, public authorities will ever ask for credentials via email, ever. Verify the sender's identity by phone if in doubt. Delete if verification fails. For emails with web links, look up the URL through a search engine rather than clicking directly. And beware of strange claims and those too good to be true offers. They usually are.
For public Wi-Fi hotspots, avoid using them as much as possible, especially for sensitive accounts like web banking. They're inherently risky. Prefer creating your own hotspot using your smartphone's mobile network with a strong password, much safer. If public Wi-Fi is absolutely necessary, always use your organization's VPN service to protect against surveillance and other malicious activities. Encrypt that traffic.
Finally, a simple one for webcam security. Disconnect external webcams when not in use. For built-in cameras, cover them with a suitable sticker when not in use. Peace of mind. The Handbook cites publications from ISACA and NSA on video conferencing, telework, web browsing, home network security, excellent resources for you to explore further for a deeper dive. #11. Use of cryptography. We've navigated network defenses, user behavior, but at the heart of protecting sensitive information lies cryptography. This best practice instructs us to use approved cryptographic algorithms to effectively protect your critical information. Whether it's sitting still at rest or moving across networks in transit, it's the unbreakable code guarding your secrets, or at least it should be unbreakable.
Cryptography is truly a cornerstone of cybersecurity because it achieves several crucial goals. Foundational goals. It ensures confidentiality. Data can only be read by authorized parties holding the encryption key. Keeps secrets secret. It provides authenticity, proving the identity of a user or system, often using a digital certificate so you know who you're communicating with.
Right. It also guarantees integrity, ensuring that a message received is identical to the message sent, typically through hash algorithms, so you know no tampering occurred in transit. And it provides non-repudiation, ensuring that the sender of a message cannot later deny they sent it, typically through digital signatures.
Right.
Assures accountability.
But, and this is vital to understand, cryptographic algorithms have a finite lifespan. They're not immortal. They constantly face new cryptanalysis methods, ways to break them, the increasing power of conventional processors, and the gradual advancements in quantum computing. What's strong today might be weak tomorrow. That's a powerful message the Handbook conveys. You can't just set it and forget it.
The Handbook uses the SHA-1 hash algorithm as a stark example, illustrating this perfectly. Widely used for years for digital signatures, HTTPS certificates, backups, it was officially deemed insecure by NIST way back in 2011 due to theoretical vulnerabilities. But the real-world impact became painfully clear in 2017 when Google announced the first collision attack on SHA-1, the Shattered attack. This demonstrated that two different PDF files could generate the same hash value. While initially a limited and practical attack value, it officially revealed SHA-1's fundamental weaknesses. The cracks were showing.
And more severely, in 2019, a chosen prefix collision attack was achieved in practice. This means an attacker can now create two different files that look legitimate but have the same hash value, making them appear identical in terms of their digital signature. Much more dangerous. Practically, this means an attacker could create a fake HTTPS certificate for a malicious domain that has the same digital signature as a certificate for a legitimate domain, allowing them to impersonate trusted websites. Modern browsers now reject SHA-1 certificates, thankfully. But the Handbook explicitly warns that any application, digital signature, or HTTPS certificate still using SHA-1 in Greek cyberspace must be immediately removed. This is a powerful illustration of the need for constant vigilance and upgrades in cryptography. Can't use broken crypto.
So what are the practical cryptographic measures the handbook advises to protect yourself? What should you be doing?
Well, first, develop and document a comprehensive cryptography policy that defines its purpose, scope, approved algorithms, and procedures. Then, fundamentally, ensure that any data classified as critical or sensitive is encrypted, both at rest, when stored, and in transit, when being transmitted over networks. Encrypt everything important.
During encryption, use the most up-to-date versions of approved cryptographic protocols and software, along with appropriate key lengths. Don't use old, weak versions. For example, wherever the RSA algorithm is used for asymmetric encryption, the key length must be at least 2048 bits long. That's the current minimum standard. For symmetric encryption, use the AES, Advanced Encryption Standard algorithm, with a key length of 256 bits. This is currently considered the gold standard, AES 256.
For hash algorithms used in digital signatures and integrity checks, use the Secure Hash Algorithm 2, SHA-2 family, choosing among SHA-256, SHA-384, or SHA-512. The handbook strictly warns, again, to avoid SHA-1 and MD5. They have been proven insecure and are no longer trustworthy for these purposes. They're broken.
And you must implement overall management of both symmetric and asymmetric encryption keys. This is huge. It includes their secure creation, storage, control, and distribution, following internationally recognized standards. This also requires hardening measures for access to the key management platform itself. Protect the keys. Finally, implement public key-based authentication for SSH secure shell connections. This is a much stronger alternative to password-based SSH authentication for secure remote access. Use keys, not just passwords. #tag12. Cybersecurity skills and awareness training. We've explored a lot of technical controls, but arguably the most critical component of any cybersecurity strategy is the human element, people. This best practice emphasizes implementing regular training programs to improve the skills and awareness of your employees on cybersecurity issues. Because even the best tech can be undermined by human error, right? This is about building your human firewall.
Absolutely. Employees play an absolutely critical role in the security of network and information systems. A critical, sometimes overlooked role. A lack of training and corresponding responsibility in this area poses various types of threats to organizations. With technical protections improving, attackers are increasingly targeting the human factor, often the greatest vulnerability. Today, most cyber attacks still begin with a phishing email, containing a malicious attachment or a link to a malicious website. If a user is deceived, the attacker can gain full control of organizational systems. It all starts with that one click sometimes.
And there's also the insider threat. Disgruntled or negligent employees can disclose critical corporate data or even deliberately cause deletion or other damage to an organization's resources. And a lack of policy on the proper use of portable storage media and personal devices, combined with a shortage of technical skills among employees, can lead to malware infections if such devices are connected to the corporate network. It's a broad range of risks stemming from human action or inaction.
The handbook provides specific signs for detecting a phishing email, which serves as an excellent training example. Shows users exactly what to look for. These include: the sender's email address doesn't match their signature or the domain looks suspicious. The email subject is questionable. The salutation isn't personalized, like "Dear Customer." The message text doesn't look professional. Hovering over a link reveals a different suspicious URL. The sender's signature lacks contact details. These are practical tips for everyone to learn and use daily.
So how do we cultivate a security-minded culture? How do we make people part of the solution?
First, develop and document a comprehensive cybersecurity training and awareness policy that addresses its purpose, scope, and specific implementation procedures. Define the program. Then, organize a regular training program to increase employee skills and awareness. Ideally conducted at least twice a year. Consistency is key. The training material should cover how to interact with the corporate network, systems, and data securely. Authentication best practices, including creating strong passwords and applying multi-factor authentication, and critically, how to identify social engineering attacks like phishing emails or impersonated phone calls.
And it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, is it? The handbook suggests periodically conducting a cybersecurity awareness training program tailored to distinct roles and different employee categories based on their business activities and technical expertise. A developer needs different training and specific warnings than, say, an accountant. Makes sense. And perform a knowledge gap analysis of your employees to identify specific weaknesses and develop a plan for sequential, targeted trainings to fill those gaps. Find out what they don't know.
Finally, for hands-on experience, a truly effective measure is to periodically conduct exercises that simulate cybersecurity incidents and their impact. Examples include having employees try to identify and avoid opening a malicious email attachment or visiting a malicious website, phishing simulations. This practical application is incredibly effective in building real-world resilience, moving beyond theoretical knowledge to actual skill. Practice makes perfect, or at least much better. Hashtag tag 13 verse 1, supply chain risk management.
Okay, we focused a lot on internal defenses, but in today's interconnected world, an organization rarely operates in isolation, does it? This next best practice addresses a growing vulnerability, the supply chain risk. It's about implementing appropriate measures and procedures to manage the risks to your corporate systems and data that arise from the access and services of IT vendors and other service providers. It's about protecting beyond your own borders, looking at your partners.
Exactly. In recent years, organizations' dependence on third-party providers for IT products, systems, services, things like hardware procurement, application development, cloud services, has increased dramatically. This dependence inevitably broadens an organization's attack surface, and consequently, the associated risks. For example, your cloud service provider's infrastructure might be located in a third country, where your data is subject to legal or covert surveillance without your knowledge. Geopolitical risk.
Another risk. A provider might have remote access to critical corporate data under contract, but fails to implement adequate technical and organizational security measures in their own infrastructure, making them a weak link in your security chain. Their vulnerability becomes yours. And a particularly insidious risk is when cybercriminals deploy malware directly into software developed by a third party. Once that compromised application is put into production, the malware can massively harm many users and systems downstream, infecting all of their customers. Remember, not PECB.
Oh yeah. The handbook notes that cyber attacks of this type have increased dramatically worldwide. Managing supply chain risk is a complex process requiring coordinated action at multiple levels within an organization. The document provides a compelling example. The SolarWinds case. That was huge. In December 2020, a highly sophisticated cyber attack, attributed to a nation-state, infected the update mechanism of the Orion network management platform with malicious code. This resulted in its installation on approximately 18,000 servers of governmental organizations and companies worldwide. This demonstrates how compromising one software vendor can lead to widespread infection across numerous unsuspecting customers, highlights the cascading impact of supply chain vulnerabilities.
So how do we build trust and control across our supply chain? How do we manage this extended risk?
Well, first, develop and document a comprehensive supply chain security policy. Define your expectations. Then, periodically conduct a thorough research and risk evaluation of all your IT vendors and service providers, including their subcontractors. Dig deep. This goes beyond technical issues to consider corporate partnerships, competitors, countries of origin to gain comprehensive knowledge of your supply chain risks. And simply put, do not enter into contracts with vendors and service providers that have been identified with a high-risk profile. Avoid known bad actors.
Ensure that contractual agreements explicitly detail the type of systems and data to which the service provider will have access during the performance of the contract. Clarity here is crucial. Define the scope. Then, develop and communicate a clear set of minimum cybersecurity requirements to your vendors and service providers, reflecting your supply chain risk evaluation. Crucially, also document your right to verify their compliance with these requirements, including their subcontractors. Trust, but verify.
The handbook suggests developing different sets of cybersecurity requirements for different types of contracts, depending on the estimated risk level for each category. Tiered approach. A vendor handling non-sensitive data doesn't need the same level of scrutiny as one handling critical customer information, right?
Makes sense. Finally, set assurance requirements for your vendors, such as requiring penetration tests, external audits, or internationally recognized cybersecurity certifications like ISO 27001 or SOC 2. Furthermore, implement key performance indicators, KPIs, to measure the performance of your entire supply chain in terms of their cybersecurity management practices. This ensures ongoing accountability and continuous improvement, making your supply chain a strength, not a weakness. Hashtag tag.14. Cybersecurity technical assessments. Okay, so you've implemented policies, secured your networks, trained your people, managed your supply chain. How do you know it's all actually working? How do you test it? This next best practice focuses on cybersecurity technical assessments, performing periodic evaluations of the technical and organizational measures deployed in your network and information systems. It's about testing your armor before the battle, seeing through an attacker's eyes, proving your defenses.
Exactly. Security assessments provide invaluable assistance in identifying gaps and vulnerabilities in your technologies, processes, even human behavior. In today's rapidly evolving threat landscape, these assessments can reveal critical weaknesses that could be fatal to an entity's assets and reputation. Common discoveries include finding unpatched systems even when the patch has been officially released, or realizing that required countermeasures against new attack forms haven't been implemented yet, or uncovering that employees exhibit dangerous behavior or ignorance about social engineering attacks despite policies requiring regular training. Finding those real-world gaps.
The handbook distinguishes between several types of assessments, each with increasing depth and rigor. First, vulnerability scanning. This uses automated tools to scan IT assets network, systems, applications for known vulnerabilities and insecure settings. It can be authenticated or non-authenticated. While mainly signature-based and prone to some false positives, it's a good first step for identifying common issues and prioritizing patches. Low-hanging fruit.
Next up is vulnerability assessment, a more systematic examination to determine the adequacy of security measures and identify deficiencies. It involves both automated and manual methods, identifying and confirming all system vulnerabilities in scope, but without exploiting them. It tells you where the weaknesses are with more confidence than just a scan.
Then there's penetration testing, or ethical hacking. This is an authorized cyber attack simulation, like hiring friendly hackers. It models real-world attacker techniques and goes beyond vulnerability assessment by attempting to exploit identified weaknesses under controlled conditions. The goal is to gain unauthorized access and determine the real impact on business operations and critical data. It shows you what an attacker could actually do.
And finally, the ultimate test, red team, blue team exercises. Red teaming mimics real cyber threat actors by using their actual tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs, often using frameworks like MITRE AT and CK. Its purpose is to train and measure the effectiveness of your organization's people, processes, and technologies used for defense. The red team conducts the attack, while the blue team, your Security Operations Center staff, your incident response team, is in charge of defense. It's a full-scale digital war game to truly test your readiness and response capabilities under pressure.
So, how do we establish a continuous cycle of improvement through these assessments? How often should we do them?
Well, first, develop and document a cybersecurity technical assessment policy. Define the scope, frequency, and methodology. Then, perform automated vulnerability scans regularly. The handbook suggests, for example, once a month to identify potential vulnerabilities in unpatched systems on your corporate assets and network. Keep that baseline check going. And conduct a full vulnerability assessment of your network and information systems periodically, at least once a year is recommended.
And perform a full penetration test on your network and information systems periodically, say, once a year. And crucially, after any confirmed cybersecurity incident, to validate fixes and ensure the attack vector is truly closed. Don't just assume it's fixed, test it. Finally, conduct red team, blue team exercises periodically, maybe once a year, to simulate cyber attacks by well-known, high-profile cybercrime groups. This drills your defenders and reveals true resilience in a realistic scenario, showing you exactly where you stand when the pressure is on. #15. Physical security measures. We focused heavily on digital threats, bits and bytes, but let's not forget the basics, the physical world. This next best practice reminds us that cybersecurity isn't just about firewalls and antivirus, it's also about physical security measures. It means controlling physical access to the facilities that host your server systems and effectively handling environmental disasters. Because if someone can physically walk in and steal a server, or just unplug it, all your digital defenses are kind of moot, aren't they? This is the unseen frontier.
You're absolutely right. When designing infrastructure, physical protection is paramount. Can't neglect it. Unauthorized individuals might enter premises with malicious intent, such as stealing devices containing valuable data, plugging in malicious USB drives, or even deliberately causing physical damage to equipment. Furthermore, beyond human threats, environmental events can be catastrophic. Think about the impact of a fire, earthquake, or flood on your critical data centers and servers. These can be just as devastating as a cyber attack, if not more so, highlighting why physical security is a foundational requirement. It protects the hardware that runs everything else.
So how do we build a physical fortress for our digital assets? What are the specific controls?
Well, first, develop and document a robust physical security policy that addresses its purpose, scope, and specific implementation procedures. Cover all bases. Then, ensure that the building facilities hosting your servers have strong control mechanisms on their outer perimeter. Things like robust locks, bars on windows maybe, alarm systems, to protect against unauthorized physical access. The first line of defense. Your server facility should also have a sufficiently staffed reception area that meticulously records visitors upon entering the building. Knowing who is on site is fundamental for accountability.
visitor logs, and maintain a strict list of persons authorized to access the server room. Authorization should be based on job position or role. Not everyone needs access. Physical access for these authorized individuals should be strictly controlled, ideally only by using something like a smart card system. Access control systems. This is your inner sanctum. Protect it accordingly.
And then, within the server room itself, implement a suite of environmental controls. This is critical for availability. Includes an alarm system, network redundancy for continuous operation, uninterruptible power supply, UPS systems for continuous power and controlled shutdown during outages, fire detection and fire suppression systems, preferably inert gas suppression, not water sprinklers for electronics, automatic temperature, humidity, and pressure controllers to maintain optimal operating conditions, keep it cool and dry, and water leakage protection systems to prevent flood damage.
Finally, install a closed-circuit television CCTV system to monitor both the indoor and outdoor areas of the server room. This provides continuous surveillance and a crucial record of events for any investigation, acting as your physical audit trail. Eyes on the prize. #16, data backups. Okay, we've talked about protecting your systems, but what happens if, despite all your best efforts, data is lost or corrupted? It happens. This next best practice focuses on data backups, implementing backup technologies and procedures to protect your systems and information against loss. It's your ultimate insurance policy, your digital safety net to recover from the worst. Absolutely essential.
It really is. Operating systems, applications, databases. They play a critical role in the daily business operation and service delivery of any organization. A simple human error or a successful cyber attack can lead to unintentional dilution of data, or ransomware infection where large volumes of critical data get encrypted, leading to complete loss of availability, or malicious configuration changes, data corruption, unauthorized account creation, software installation, even deletion of important logs to hide malicious activity. In any of these scenarios, the continuity of business operations is at great risk. This fact elevates backups to a fundamental security measure for every single organization.
So how do we build a robust recovery strategy using backups? What are the specifics?
Well, first, develop and document a comprehensive backup policy. It should address its purpose, scope, roles, responsibilities, frequency, retention, testing procedures, all the details. Then, perform automated backups of all your important organizational assets on a daily basis, or more frequently if needed. This should effectively combine different backup techniques. Full, incremental, differential backups to balance speed, storage, and completeness.
And crucially, ensure that your received backups are encrypted, both at rest, when stored, and in transit, during transmission to the backup location. Your backups are only as secure as their encryption. Don't back up sensitive data unencrypted. A vital protection against advanced ransomware. Ensure that backups are stored in at least one offline location. The 3-2-1 rule often applies here. This protects them from online ransomware attacks that can encrypt network-accessible backups, ensuring you always have an uncompromised copy that's physically disconnected or air-gapped.
Right? And it's not enough to just have backups. You must perform an integrity check of your backups on a regular basis. Make sure they're not corrupted. And this is truly vital. Perform a data restoration process on a regular basis. Test your restores. This ensures that your backups are actually working properly and can be used to recover systems when needed. Many organizations tragically find their backups are corrupted or unusable only when they desperately need them, a mistake you simply cannot afford to make. Test, test, test.
Finally, maintain backup copies in geographically dispersed locations. This reduces susceptibility to the same localized threats. For example, a regional power outage or natural disaster hitting your primary site and your local backup. Ensures resilience against widespread physical events. #17, incident handling. Okay, despite all the preventative measures we've discussed, cyber attacks are an unfortunate reality. They happen. This next best practice outlines incident handling, implementing procedures for effectively detecting, responding to, and restoring functionality after cybersecurity incidents. This is about being prepared when your defenses are breached, having a clear plan when the unthinkable happens. What do you do when the alarm bells ring?
The ability of organizations to detect malicious attacks, respond effectively, and restore their functionality after a system breach is a critical priority. Absolutely critical for ensuring business continuity and uninterrupted service provision. The impact of not implementing an adequate incident response plan can be severe. This includes the inability to limit damage. Failure to detect an incident in progress or after it has occurred severely limits your ability to handle it effectively. which can lead to prolonged system downtime, significant financial losses, and irreparable damage to business reputation.
And if an organization fails to address the root cause of an incident like outdated systems or software vulnerabilities, it remains exposed to recurring breaches, creating a cycle of continuous business disruptions. You keep getting hit the same way. Furthermore, an incident resulting in sensitive data compromise can lead to significant administrative and financial sanctions, especially if an audit reveals the entity wasn't compliant with specific legal and regulatory provisions like GDPR. It's not just about getting back online, it's about meeting your legal and ethical obligations too.
So, what does a comprehensive life cycle of incident response look like? The handbook breaks it down into clear stages. It's a process.
Right. Start with a well-defined, documented incident handling policy, set the framework. Then develop a detailed, step-by-step cybersecurity incident response plan, the playbook. This plan must describe specific activities across the entire life cycle, what happens when.
These activities begin with preparation. Proactively evaluating critical systems, analyzing potential threats, implementing security measures, training your team, managing human resources throughout the process, getting ready before anything happens. Then comes identification, detecting deviations from normal operations, meticulously collecting evidence, and thoroughly analyzing the incident to understand its scope and nature. What happened? How bad is it?
Next are containment and eradication, swiftly isolating network segments under attack and removing malware from all affected systems. Stop the bleeding, get the bad stuff out. Then, recovery, bringing all affected systems back to full operation, ensuring they are clean and secure, getting back to normal safely.
Crucially, there's evidence collection and reporting. Gathering forensic evidence for post-incident analysis, creating a detailed report, and notifying relevant authorities and your employees. Documentation and communication are key. This is vital for accountability and legal compliance. And finally, lessons learned. Conducting a meeting with all stakeholders to discuss the incident. The aim is to gain knowledge that can be used to prevent or mitigate future attacks. Don't waste a crisis.
And you need people for this. Establish a dedicated cybersecurity incident response team, CSRT, from your human resources, assigning specific roles and responsibilities. If in-house development isn't feasible, outsource this to a specialized third-party service provider. Get expert help if needed. And ensure your incident response team, whether in-house or outsourced, has access to adequate data sources and tools logs. Same, forensic tools that monitor systems to detect key indicators of breach. Give them the tools they need.
Conduct incident response training for employees with respective responsibilities on a regular basis. Drills and simulations. This training should cover both technical and non-technical issues and be differentiated by assigned roles. The handbook also details specific steps when malware is detected. Isolate infected systems, scan portable media, obtain a forensic image, use antivirus, restore from backup if needed, re-imaging, and implement corrective actions. Install patches, harden systems, change passwords, clean up thoroughly.
Locate and collect complete evidence of the incident and prepare a detailed report. This should be sent to all relevant parties, competent authorities, your employees. Transparency where appropriate. Collect and document the knowledge learned from analyzing and resolving cybersecurity incidents. Build that institutional memory. Actively use this knowledge to mitigate the impact of future cyber attacks.
Conduct regular exercises that simulate cybersecurity incidents. Tabletop exercises, full simulations. This helps the incident response team develop awareness and capacity to respond effectively to real attacks. Make sure they're ready when the real thing happens. Practice is crucial. Finally, consider developing a Security Operations Center, SOC, equipped with monitoring, scanning, forensic tools, staffed with specialized personnel. An SOC aims for timely detection and response to cybersecurity incidents 24/7. This can be implemented either in-house or outsourced. The handbook references the UK's NCSC Detailed Guide for Incident Management, a valuable resource for you to check out. #tag18. Business Continuity and Disaster Recovery.
All right, after addressing incident handling for cyber attacks, the final best practice, number 18, broadens the scope. It focuses on business continuity and disaster recovery. This is about implementing measures and procedures to ensure the continuous operation of your business and the restoration of your systems after any adverse event or disaster, not just cyber attacks. It's about ensuring your organization can withstand major shocks, fires, floods, pandemics, major outages, and remain operational no matter what happens. True organizational resilience.
Exactly. The need for uninterrupted availability of services for any governmental or corporate entity and the ability to restore operations after an adverse event are fundamental requirements. Can't afford to be down for long. Events can range from denial of service attacks and ransomware infections, which we've talked about, to natural disasters like earthquakes, fires, or floods. All can cause temporary or prolonged interruption of critical operations. Availability and recovery requirements vary greatly between organizations, right? These must be precisely determined based on a prior risk analysis and a business impact analysis, BIA, so that appropriate risk-consistent measures can be applied. How quickly do you need to be back up?
So, how do we plan for the worst while ensuring the best possible outcome for continuous operations? What are the controls here?
Well, first, develop and document a comprehensive business continuity and disaster recovery policy, outlining its purpose, scope, roles, responsibilities, and detailed implementation procedures. Formalize it. Then, perform an impact analysis, BIA, to determine and evaluate the potential effects of various adverse events, cyber attack, natural disaster, accident on your critical business operations. What hurts the most if it breaks? Based on these results, develop a detailed business continuity plan, BCP. This plan should describe the precise procedures to sustain your critical processes and services during and after a significant disruption. Who does what, when, how.
Maintain redundant resources within your system architecture to meet availability requirements. This could mean redundant servers, networks, power supplies, no single points of failure. Also, establish and train a specialized team from your workforce. This team must have full knowledge of the business continuity plans and the necessary competence to manage adverse situations affecting your critical business operations. Know the plan, be ready to execute.
Crucially, perform exercises for testing your business continuity and disaster recovery plans on a regular basis. Walkthroughs, simulations. This is especially important when significant technical and procedural changes have occurred in your critical business operations. You need to know that the plan works in practice, not just on paper. An untested plan is just a document.
Establish an alternate storage site that is geographically distinct from your primary storage site. We mentioned this for backups, applies here too. This reduces susceptibility to the same localized threats, like a regional power outage or natural disaster affecting a single location. Geographic diversity. And consider outsourcing the provision of disaster recovery services, DIAS, to a specialized service provider. This can enable immediate transfer of your business operations to another environment using virtualization technologies, often providing faster and more cost-effective recovery capabilities.
Finally, similar to storage, establish an alternate processing site that is geographically distinct from your primary processing site, a hot site, warm site, or cold site, depending on your needs. Again, this mitigates the risk of a single point of failure impacting all operations, truly completing your comprehensive resilience strategy against major disruptions. #outro.
Well, that was a truly comprehensive deep dive into the Cybersecurity Handbook from the National Cybersecurity Authority of Greece. Wow. We've covered everything from fundamental security architectures like defense in depth and zero trust, to the critical steps of risk assessment, and then walk through all 18 essential best practices, from inventorying assets and securing configurations all the way to handling incidents and ensuring business continuity. A lot to take in.
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how clearly this handbook communicates that cybersecurity isn't a one-time project you complete and then forget about. Not at all. It's a continuous, evolving process. Each of these controls isn't just a checkbox. It's a living part of an adaptive defense strategy, constantly needing review, updates, and practice to stay ahead of ever-changing threats. It's about cultivating a culture of continuous improvement, where vigilance is embedded in every action, every day.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? It means whether you're a CISO leading an organization, a software engineer building applications, or simply a teleworker navigating your digital life. You are an active participant in cybersecurity. Everyone has a role. The ultimate takeaway, maybe, is that true resilience comes not just from advanced technology, but from thoughtful planning, consistent implementation, and a well-informed, proactive human element. Technology alone isn't enough. So what aspect of your digital environment will you look at differently after today's deep dive? Something to think about.
Yeah, we hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and, more importantly, some actionable knowledge you could apply.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that helps you become even more well-informed faster. Until then, stay curious and stay secure.